Hello and welcome to the Simply Smart Business Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Ong, and I'm absolutely delighted to have with me today Jennifer Dixson Hoff. She recently left corporate life after 30 years and started her own entrepreneurial journey at Violet Sunflower Solutions. Today, Jennifer and I are going to be talking about all sorts of amazing things like the ups and downs of being a working mom, taking a risk in your career and betting on yourself, and investing in others. So hello, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Nikki. It's such a pleasure. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I always like to start off with a little story time. So take me back and take me through your journey and how you got started, how you decided to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So I would say I'm an unexpected entrepreneur, but my story is such that I graduated from college and started working right away. Like a month after I graduated, I worked in the retail sector for 16 years and I loved it. I was on the wholesale side, I was on the department store side. I then took 5 years off and stayed home with my kids when they were in first and third grade, and that was wonderful. And I went back to work when they were in sixth and eighth grade. So they were ready for me not to be at home every day when they came home. And when I re-entered the workforce, I really did some thinking about like, what do I want to do? I have all these skills in retail, and I could definitely go back into retail, but what would I really want to do that would make me feel like I was doing something important for other people? So I decided to enter the education sector, and I went to work for a university and worked on the business side of a university. So a lot of people probably don't realize that universities have their really important academic side and the
Mhm.
teaching side, but they also have the side where of the house where individuals are looking at what programs should be offered and what the competitive landscape looks like. Has anything changed? What the pricing structure should look like? How would the university have competitive differentiation? So I did that. And really fell in love with picking a profession that gives back to other people. And I would say some of the most important moments in my career when I worked in higher ed were not business accomplishments, but instead when I would go to commencement and see individuals walking across the stage, often first generation college graduates with their grandparents in the audience and cheering for them, and that just really had such a profound impact on how I want to spend my time when I'm working. And so from that point on, I've really stayed in education. I just left my corporate role in 25. After I worked in higher ed, I moved to a professional learning organization, and I was there
Mhm.
for years. And what I've decided to do post corporate life is to work with organizations to help them grow, but also help their individuals grow and help them really think about prioritizing investing in their human capital and mentoring others as well. So that's what I'm doing now. That's what Violet Sunflower Solutions is all about. And I would say I'm new to this entrepreneurial journey, but really trying to take my experience of corporate world and what I found important and propel it into the next phase of my life.
Amazing. What a cool story. And I think having all of that corporate experience bodes well for you as an entrepreneur because you really know what it takes. Would you agree with that?
I think so, though. One of the things I'm learning about, and you always hear this about entrepreneurs, and then you get in there and you work with them and you're like, holy moly, this is a lot of work. But, they do everything from, turning the lights on in some cases to, writing the Google review responses on their sites. So I
Mhm.
would say I have an even greater respect for the journey of entrepreneurs because of the fact that they have to wear so many hats. But
Mhm.
in general, I think the corporate experience does bode well because the other thing I've learned about entrepreneurs is that they spend so much time running the business that they often don't have time to think about how to take the business to the next level. And so
Mhm.
that's really what I want to do with and for them is to help them take it, to the next level, whether it's a 10% growth, in a year, or they want to develop a 5-year plan. That's my goal, is to really help them move the business forward in a way that they can still feel confident about every day and how they're taking care of their customers, but know they have a plan to grow.
So ultimately, you're helping those businesses scale and sort of getting out of the weeds so that they can see past, because as entrepreneurs, it's so hard to see past that day to day, right? Turning on the lights and writing your Google reviews, like you said,
Yeah,
and being able to actually see what's next.
exactly. Exactly. And one of the things I've learned about myself as I've been on the journey is every moment I spend working on those plans, I don't feel like I'm working. So
Mhm.
it's not that I didn't enjoy my other roles, but I'm so invested in their success and so invested in them that when I work on projects related to growth for them, it feels joyous to me and brings me
Mm.
just a lot of satisfaction. So I've learned about myself that that's really important right now, that I feel that way when I'm working, and that it's really coming to life for me and making me just feel differently as a whole
Mm.
person, knowing that that's how I'm responding to the work.
Yeah, and that's huge. I feel like that's a good navigation tool for whether you're doing
Yeah,
what you're supposed to be doing, right? When you feel that passion, when you feel the joy, when you maybe not love every single second
of
about
course.
working in your
Of
business,
course.
but the majority of it, that is such a good indicator that you found the right thing for you. So congratulations.
It's not that I haven't felt that in other roles, but
Sure.
it just feels different now. And I feel also so invested in their success, and I don't want to let them down, of course. So, yeah, it's
Mhm.
fun to feel that way. And it's also fun for me to see the value I'm adding and how gracious they've been towards me in the work that I'm doing. So that's great.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. And I hear a lot from talking to a lot of entrepreneurs and my own clients that many people have taken that step of corporate life just isn't for me for whatever reason, and taking that big step, that big leap of faith to starting your own business. So talk to me a little bit about that. What was it that took you from that corporate journey to saying, I want to bet on myself?
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, and I've done thinking about this in the past when I switched roles in my different corporate jobs, whether it was within the same company or whether it was moving to a different company. And I think the barometer, or the thing I would ask people to think about, is, are you willing to bet on yourself being successful? And that's a really scary thing, because you think about, well, what if I fail? Or what if I'm not good at this? Or what if I don't like it? And in my opinion, if you don't bet on yourself, other people won't either. And
Mhm.
so it's really important for you to think about that. So even if you go back to, I'm in a role and I'm really happy, and the company approaches me about interviewing for another position or moving into another role, I would tell people in that position, like, really think about betting on yourself in that regard. And is that a good move for you? And even if it's scary, to think about doing it. And then also to take the risk to move to another company. Perhaps, like, I had been at a company for 10 years, an opportunity came up, and I was like, if I don't do this, if I don't bet on myself, like, what am I doing? Like, that would be
Mhm.
crazy to not do that. And then I would say, in this journey, the same thing. It can be really scary to do something different. But what I've learned in my career, especially because I stepped out for 5 years and then went back in, is if you don't like it, you can change it. And
Absolutely.
many times when you're in a role for a long time, you really start to believe that, like, this role is your whole life. Like, your routine, you get up, you have your coffee, and you go to work, and you do this, and the people, and you're often trading on your reputation there, which is good because people know who you are. If you do something different and you don't like it, or it's not working out, you can change that circumstance. And I think it does feel scary. And then after you've done it once or twice or three times, it doesn't feel as scary. It's taken me a long time to, I would say, have the confidence to be able to make decisions like that, to say,
Mhm.
I am ready for something else. I'm going to do something else. And I know in this, because I'm betting on me, that it's going to work out no matter how it works out. And so it's something I would have others think about, because I would say I probably lingered longer not doing that at different times in my career, and could have been a little more risky and taking some risk. And I've learned a lot along the way when I did take the risk. So I've learned about myself and something I would ask others to think about for themselves.
To just go for it. I've read, because we were talking about women in leadership right before the recording started, and I read something years ago now that when women apply to roles, they typically like to match 9 out of 10 or 10
Mm,
out of the
mhm,
10
mhm.
things that are listed as far as
Yeah.
qualification,
Mhm.
but men tend to go for the job or apply for the job, even if they're only 50 or 60% qualified. So I feel like for women, especially, not that we're more risk adverse necessarily, I think that's a person to person thing, but I do notice that women in general may take a little bit of extra time to take that leap of faith in themselves.
I think that's right. And it probably comes back to the fact that I think when a woman, especially a woman who is working and has children might be coming up, they just want to make sure it's going to be a great match for them and their family.
Hmm.
And taking risk is scary. And, there's this fear of failure. And I would say that I have had to really, really re examine what failure means and how I respond to it because there have been times where like I should have verbalized things differently or I should have done things differently in my career. But the fear that someone would judge me as a failure or not up to the task by articulating those things was so real that I didn't do it. And I've just learned over time that it's really your level. You have to determine what that level is of
Hmm.
failure. And even if you fall down, picking yourself up is not a failure. Picking yourself up is an amazing thing.
Hmm.
And not
It's
everything
resiliency.
it is, and not everything you do is going to be fantastic, but that fear can be really real. And I would say the other thing I've really had to do in my career is examine the fear. Fear of what? Fear of being judged, fear of failure, fear not being good enough, all these different things. And what I learned finally, and I was telling you before the show that like I'm going to be 57 this summer, so it's been a lot of years of working, but you make very different decisions and respond to things differently when fear is removed. And if you're in a culture that's fear based or you become very fearful of the outcome of things, you're going to have different outcomes than if you can remove the fear. And so that's something that's taken me a long time to do, but I think I finally am there. And I would encourage people to really think about that. Like, are you making fear-based decisions and why? And how can you remove that fear? Because
Mhm.
it will allow a better outcome for you.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And kind of shifting now into a mom, working
Oh yeah.
mom, and even taking a break or working with little ones at home. This is a big passion of mine as a mompreneur and the joy and the harmony and balance of being able to raise your family and raise your business at the same time. I think that there's just nothing better than that. So tell me a little bit about your experience about being a working mom and that time kind of shifting out of work and back in and how that went for you.
Yeah, so it's something unique about me, and I really like when people get to know me to share that part because
Yeah.
especially I want my female colleagues to know because I want them to also understand I'm someone that they can come to if they ever want to talk about this friction point that sometimes happens between work and home and kids
Mhm.
and all those different things. Stepping out was hard, but I had been working for 16 years at that point, and my kids were, smaller, and I think I was kind of exhausted. I'm sure many moms feel that way.
Mhm.
And so it was a luxury that I was really so happy to take advantage of. And it was hard living on one income, even like mentally knowing the pressure it put on my husband. It was
Mhm.
definitely challenging. And then going back to work, we had to kind of reacclimate to a lot of the, norms of, we have sick kids at home. When they're in sixth grade and eighth grade, you can't really leave them at home. Um,
Mhm.
you can when they're a little bit older. But, still to this day, like my kids are number one. And I would have people that would work for me say, "Oh, just so you know, like one of my kids is having some health issues and we're going to have some doctor's appointments." And I'm like, if I were you, I'd take more time off than that to do the doctor's appointments or do it faster. And people would always be so surprised because they would see me at work in this very, you know, like boss kind of role.
Mm-hmm. Professional.
Yes, not really realizing that I've like walked in the shoes of all of that. And I want women to stay in the workforce and to not feel like they have to choose, because if you ask someone to choose between work and their kids, they will choose their kids every single
As
time.
they should.
Yeah,
As they
every
should.
single time. So why put him in that position? Now,
Mm-hmm.
of course, as an employer, you can't be taken advantage of, but most of the time, you're not taken advantage of, that they're working so hard to meet your expectations. My role when I was leading big teams, I would talk about these kind of struggles, and I would, really encourage women to stick with it and stick through it. I know I've saved several careers because of having these conversations with people.
Mm-hmm.
And then reality is, and I would always tell them, every day is not the best day of your life. It's not going to be if you're a stay-at-home mom, and it's not going to be if you're a working mom. So
Mm-hmm.
just understand there are some days that are really going to be super crappy. You're going to be tired. Your husband's going to be tired. You've got a sick kid. You're making really hard trade-offs. But everyone will grow from it. And at the end, like if you take the long view on how you're looking at it, um, everyone will be okay. But the
Mm-hmm.
day to day is what you're really, have to struggle with, the logistics and all of that. So
Absolutely.
I encourage women to stay in the workforce until it doesn't work. And then if you step out, just know that you can go back in, and there's lots of different opportunities out there for part-time roles that there didn't used to be, for remote roles.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the gig economy has been friendly to working moms, and hopefully that will even save some more careers over time.
Absolutely. And I can totally attest to that. I actually even count COVID as a blessing in some ways because I felt like I was a very new mom at that time and I had my son home with me full time and I'm nursing and on a Zoom call and having to say, okay, everybody, I'm gonna, you're not gonna see me for a minute, but I'm here. And I
Right.
feel like the COVID experience of everybody being home and everybody having, kids running in and out of Zoom calls was really beneficial for especially working moms because it just kind of leveled the playing field. Like we're all full humans that have families or have our pet parents or whatever the case may be, and that we have other things in our lives that are also important. And then we can also get our jobs done.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And my children now are 27 and 25. One is married, one is on his way to being married, and they're still the most important thing. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't have my phone right here right now, but if my daughter called, I would pick it up
Oh, as you
because,
should.
she would call because something was important. And now my goal is a little bit different. It's to see each one of my children quarterly because they live on the East Coast, I live on the West Coast. Instead of it being, all the trade-offs with like a certain day, my husband and I are like, okay, we're going to travel this weekend or that weekend, or we're going to fly,
Mhm.
because I still have tried to extend that relationship with my children into their adulthood and my next phase of working too.
And that's so, so valuable. And what's amazing is that you can also get your work done, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
You can have all the things. And I just love that so much. One of the other things that you had mentioned is sort of your core to your being, core to your business is investing in others. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I am really passionate about investing in other people financially, or investing in their careers and helping them be successful. And I could do a little storytelling, which I may do. I know I was telling you about this situation.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So, and I don't have the outcome of this all figured out yet, but here's a good example. So I was recently working with a startup, and one of the really cool things about the role was that I worked with people all over the world, which I never really have done quite like this before. And
Mhm.
quite a few of the people I worked with were in Africa, and I actually had some team members that were in Africa. And it was my first week on the job, and I was supposed to meet with someone. And she sent me this Teams message, and she was so apologetic. And she's like, I just want you to know my daughter's really, really sick and I can't meet with you today. And I'm like, okay, no problem. Like, we'll pick up next week. And then she's like, oh my gosh, I so appreciate your support. I'm like, well, of course, I'm your daughter's sick, like you can't meet. And keep in mind with the time difference, it was her evening. So this was like her night with her daughter who's very ill. And she told me that she had a lot of, these are her words, like trauma about taking time
Mm.
off work to be with a sick child in her past experience. So as I talked to her about this over time, what I learned is that she did not have health insurance and that her daughter needed to have her tonsils out and she's been unable to afford the surgery. And so that was pretty daunting for me because at 9 years old, I had to have my tonsils out. I was really sick when I was a kid too. And it was like life changing for me in terms of living before that and after because I was so sick all the time and I never really got to do a lot of the things that I wanted to because I did not feel well when I was a kid. So anyway, so I talked to one of the other individuals that was doing some consulting with the company and we decided to do a GoFundMe. And so we're in the process of getting this set up. So perhaps I will have this set up by the time the podcast airs, but if not, check back. I'll find a way to share this. But
Absolutely.
we were like, well, how much could it really cost in Kenya to have your tonsils out? And so she and I talked about doing a GoFundMe so that we could help this woman who is a working mom and trying really hard to make ends meet with a child who has some medical issues and see if we can't fund the tonsillectomy, which seems like we should be able to do this, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
I say investing in others, what I really, really want to do is whether they know my name, they never know my name, or whether they even know I exist. I want to do things that have an impact on other people that's positive.
Mm-hmm.
And I just believe in karma and that all of this will come back to them doing things in their life that will have a difference on other people's lives. So whether it's so simple as like recently, I was getting my nails done and I live part-time in Colorado and part-time in Arizona. And the woman next to me was literally telling her nail tech, like she was there to take her polish off, that she was going on food stamps and she's trying to figure out how much they would be getting. And I'm like, I am paying for her manicure. Like, why would I not? Like it
Mm-hmm.
$25. And I would rather like not go out to dinner tonight and know that I did something nice for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not trying to make this seem like I'm, first of all, running around paying for everything for everyone else, but I'm trying to pick moments that matter of
Yeah.
doing things for other people, investing in other people, doing something unexpected, investing in their business, which I'm doing in a few cases,
Mm-hmm.
also for women, and having an impact greater than myself because I just feel very strongly that doing these things, being smart, making the right investments, doing kind
Mm-hmm.
things for other people, helping other people that might not know how to always help themselves, that I can help someone else's path be a little bit
Mm-hmm.
easier. And I'm not looking for anything but to know that I made a difference. So that's what I mean by investing in others. And some of that also means helping coach people with their career,
Mm-hmm.
helping them really realize their own potential, because I think sometimes people don't see it in themselves. So that
Absolutely.
is kind of what's important to me and what I want to be known for in a way of not the accolades, but the
Sure.
kindness.
And kindness matters. I mean, that's what I preach to my 6-year-old, right? It matters when you're little, it matters when you're older, it matters for all of us. So I think that's so powerful. And thank you for being such a kind human. I think that's an incredible gift to anyone to be surrounded by you, quite honestly.
Lovely. I'm sure not everyone thinks that way about me. I'll be real, but it really is my intent. And
Absolutely.
I really, now that I'm had more time to think about it, I want to do more of it. I really do.
Mm.
So, like, impact investing is important to me. Investing in women-owned businesses is important to me.
Mm.
And, really getting people across the finish line in terms of being able to achieve and aspire to the things that they're dreaming of would be a great legacy for me and something I'd love to continue.
Absolutely. That's amazing. I love that that's a part of who you are and your business too. I feel like you're really infusing that. And that's why you'll be successful is because
Mm.
it's not just about, for you, I can see it. It's not just about helping a business scale or grow or go to the next thing. It's about more than that. It's about the true impact that you're making. And clients feel that and they see that, not just data wise, like data's great, but they feel that from you. So I think that you're going to have all the success in the world because of that.
Right. Thank you. That would be awesome. I would love
Yes.
if I could fill
Yes.
my days with that every day. That would just be how I want to spend my time. So thank
Love
you.
it. I love it. Absolutely. And on that note, as you've gotten started this year, I know that you have a relatively new business, but what are the things that you're thinking of as far as getting out there? Are you kind of leaning more on your network right now as far as gaining new clients, getting the next jobs ahead and thinking ahead, or are you doing any other sort of marketing tactics as you go?
Such a good question. So I'd love to also get your perspective on some things here.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I needed to decompress a little bit right when I was leaving my previous role. I also moved to Arizona.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so that combination of like leaving a role and moving and kind of getting like a house set up where we had a bed, we slept on the floor until mid-February. Anyway, I know, so crazy. So I took a little time to kind of get that organized.
Sure.
And then what my husband suggested, which I know he's right about this, but it took me a while to kind of get my groove, was to really start networking, amplifying the conversations I was having with people. And he had a great framework for how I should think about it. And I started off admittedly kind of slow, but I did start out with some people that I knew well and asked for their input even on like where I should focus. Because when I
Hmm.
first thinking about setting up the business, I was like, well, I could do this and I could do this and I could do this. I was kind of all over the board. And then as I talked to people and I'd ask them questions like, what do you think I'm good at? And like, why am I good at that? And what makes me stand out there? And like, where would you want to see me? I started to kind of hone this idea of growth and strategy. And being like someone I'm really close to said, like, you're able to translate strategy for other people into like what it means every day. And like, that's not
Hmm.
something everyone can do. So, like, really focus.
Mm-mm.
And then what I did is through a little bit of networking, I got invited to an entrepreneurial roundtable in the Phoenix Scottsdale area of entrepreneurs.
Nice.
And they meet once a month and they talk about like the networking and referral and word of mouth and like different things in their business. So I learned a lot there too. And I've just gotten to know people. And then I've started to sending within my network. I've started to send some, messages and, set up some coffee with people because a lot of my network is
Hmm.
in Minneapolis, where I'm from originally, or in St. Louis, where I worked for 3 years. And then I've asked people for testimonials. So I have some of those on my site.
Very smart.
I need to get this blog up and running so that I can, and I'll probably, Nikki, want to talk to you about this because I know I need to think about some SEO and some of that, like true marketing tactics. But I would say overall, one of the things that has pleasantly surprised me is a few people have found me on LinkedIn and reached out to me that I didn't
Amazing.
even know. And so that also has been super interesting. Uh, and I do have something going from one of those connections. So that's what I'm doing now. I don't know. I'd love your advice on I've only been doing this for 3 months, but I have all these years of experience. So I'd love
Right.
your on what do you think about
Yeah, because it's a big shift to go from
it? Is.
corporate where you're kind of having you're either have ownership of the client or you're being fed clients, perhaps if you're not on the sales team or the marketing team. I think you're doing all the right things right now, honestly, Jennifer. Word of mouth is always going to be the best tactic, always, forevermore. It will be the strongest, best thing you can do. And I think the networking for you is fantastic. I always say that you want to start off small and then slowly add to
Oh,
things
sure.
because
Yeah,
there's
right.
there's never a bigger issue. And I'm sure you've seen this with the entrepreneurs that you've worked with, that they've been told to do everything under the sun, be on all the social media, do the blog, do the podcast, do the email newsletter, do all these things, and then that's their job. They're overwhelmed by it. So I always believe in starting off small and then slowly adding tactics.
Okay.
But
Yep, yep, yep.
I love me some blogging and SEO because they're just a great way to improve your thought leadership and bring people to you, to a
Okay.
space that you own on your website. And that's why I love them so much, because we don't control social media.
Right.
And as wonderful as it is, if they decide to close down Facebook and Instagram tomorrow, or TikTok is banned, then, you no longer have control over that.
Yeah, so that's great. That's great. But I would say, as much as I know coming out of corporate America, like when you're doing it yourself, it's kind of daunting. I'm sure other people say that too. And yeah, I would say I'm probably not as focused as I should be, but I'm right in that period of like from the decompression into kind of ramping back up and, getting some ideas of how I want to do it.
And
Yeah.
it's like you said before, it's hard to be that entrepreneur, be in
Oh, yeah.
charge of turning on and off the lights and everything. And then you're so focused on your clients that
Right.
it's challenging to think of what's coming next and to look up from, your little bubble and think of, okay, I need to keep these clients coming in and keep growing this.
That's right. Yeah.
So
And
it's hard to do both.
I can kind of, relate to, I remember when my kids were younger and you always had the pull of the different activities and things like that. But like at the same time, just to be super frank, like I'm trying to figure out what dentist do I need to set up with my husband and I. And like I'm trying to get all that stuff done too. And so I find there's a lot of pulling at me for my time but I'm the one doing the pulling instead of you're working in a business, you might have, different people pulling on you or different business initiatives.
Right.
So going back to just business fundamentals, I really do probably need to focus a little more and spend some thoughtful time on it versus what I've done. So that's great advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the like calendar blocking technique.
Okay. Yep.
And I have to do this for myself a lot because I think the moment where your time is your own and you can spend time kind of doing whatever you want all of a sudden, it makes it that much more challenging. And so I often will, especially if it's a difficult task, I will say, eat the frog. I will
Oh,
do
yeah.
this task. And then when I'm done, I can do a couple of, house things, or I can call the dentist that I've been meaning to and kind of check off that life list a little bit.
That's good advice. Yeah. I will take any advice that I can get because
Yeah,
and I'm living in a new place. And so everything is new. I still need navigation to go anywhere. So everything is kind of new for me, but it feels so good and it
yeah,
feels so refreshing. And I think it's so easy when you've been doing something for a long time to get like lulled into the routine, what the routine brings you every day, and then totally breaking up that routine. It is really energizing and exciting. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
absolutely. I love that so much. Well, Jennifer, I feel like I could talk to you forever, quite
Oh,
honestly,
same.
because you're so full of amazing insights. And this has been it's been an incredible conversation, quite honestly. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your wisdom with us. And what's the best way for listeners to connect with you?
Yeah, I'd say on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, it's Jennifer Dixon Hoff, Dixson Hoff. And you can see on my LinkedIn profile the page to Violet Sunflower Solutions. You can send me an email there. You can send me a LinkedIn message. I would love that, actually. And yeah, I will respond to everyone's. I
Awesome.
get to know your listeners better. And it's been so great spending with
Yes.
you. And I hope we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Me too. Thank you. And of course, I'll include all those links in the show notes for everybody, so you can just click right there. Do you have any final words of encouragement for our listeners, Jennifer?
I
Any
would
thoughts or anything?
Yeah, bet on yourself. Be the best version
Mm,
of yourself and bet on yourself. Be the one that did it. I'm very motivated by those kinds of things. And I think there's a book out there about this, a collection of stories. I would love to put that together of women who bet on themselves and who
mhm.
were able to do whatever they wanted to do, big and small. Sometimes the small things are the hardest things to do. It's
Definitely.
and if I can help in any way, I'd love to be a thought partner on any of that and, just encourage your audience to be the best version of themselves. And if they do that and they're authentic, that's everything.
hmm Winning combination. I totally agree. Well, Jennifer, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here on the Simply Smart Business podcast. Thank you to everybody for listening and tuning in, and be sure to subscribe for more inspiring conversations and actionable strategies to help you and your business. So until next time, we'll see you then.